Welcome to Sewing 101. In this video, we'll learn the basic hand sewing skills you'll need to know before starting a sewing project. Today we'll cover hand sewing materials, threading a needle, tying a knot, and two of the most useful beginner stitches, running stitch and whip stitch. First, let's look at our materials. Today we'll be using felt, but depending on your project, this could be any type of fabric material. We also have embroidery thread, a sewing needle, and scissors. Our first step to get ready to sew is to thread our needle. Start by cutting a piece of embroidery thread that is about the length of your arm. Next, thread one end of the embroidery thread through the eye of your needle. Pull your embroidery thread through the needle so one side is half as long as the other. Next, we need to tie a knot. We'll tie it at the end of the longer side of thread. To tie the knot, you will wrap the thread around your finger to create a loop. Then remove your finger by rolling the loop off with your thumb. Pull from each side to tighten it. Then cut the excess thread. Now we are ready to sew. The most common and simple stitch is the running stitch. This stitch moves up and down along the fabric, kind of like a dashed line. First, you'll grab two pieces of fabric and lay them down on top of each other, aligning their edges. Starting on one side, you'll begin the stitching about half of an inch in from the corner of the fabrics. To start, you'll push your needle up through both fabrics, from back to front. Pull the needle all the way through until the knot stops at the back of the fabric. Then, you'll push the needle back in a little bit forwards from the first hole, staying the same distance from the edge, and pull the thread through from front to back. You will continue to stitch up and down in a single row along the edge of your fabrics, creating a dashed line. Make sure to pull your thread all the way through every stitch, so the stitches are tight against the fabric. As you stitch, keep making sure your loose thread end isn't too short, so it doesn't fall out of the needle. The stitch length is up to you. You can do short stitches like this, or long stitches like this. Just be sure to keep them all consistent. When you reach the end, make sure your last stitch ends with your needle coming out of the back side of the fabric. Thread the needle through the closest stitch on the back side. Pull it around and through the loop it just created, and pull it tight. Do that same thing a few times to make it secure. Then cut the excess thread. Great, now it's your turn. Please pause this video and practice your running stitch skills on your printed worksheet. When you're done, come back and continue the video. Another common type of stitch is called whip stitch. Instead of sewing across the fabric in a straight line, whip stitch wraps the thread around the fabric edge on every stitch, looking kind of like a spiral-bound notebook. First, you'll need to lay down two pieces of fabric on top of one another, so that their edges are aligned. Starting at a corner about 1/4 inch in from the fabric edge, you'll pull the needle and thread up through both layers of fabric until the knot stops at the back. Then wrap your needle and thread around the edge of the fabrics, looping around from front to back, and you will again push the needle up through both layers of fabric, from back to front, about 1/4 inch forwards from your previous hole. You will repeat that over and over, slowly making your way up the edge of your fabric pieces. It is helpful to remember that for whip stitch, you will always be putting your needle into the fabric from the same side. Once you've completed stitching the edge, finish by knotting the thread on the back. Thread the needle through the last stitch on the back side, pull it around and through the loop you just created, and pull it tight. Do that same thing a few times to make it secure. Then cut the excess thread. Okay, now it's your turn. Once this video ends, please practice your whip stitch skills on your printed worksheet. Now you know the basic hand sewing skills you'll use in many future projects. Practice these stitches until they feel comfortable, and you'll be ready to start creating with confidence.